current system, though, sees claimants can be subjected to open-ended sanctions if certain requirements aren't met, like attending a meeting with a work coach, and those sanctions can result in benefit deductions until a claimant recomplies. Under this new setup, those facing this sanction for more than 6 months could have their claims closed entirely, hence the loss of prescriptions, dental care and such like. However, it should be pointed out there are significant caveats that perhaps haven't received the attention they require, and that is this new sanction or range of sanctions won't be applied to those receiving any additional child, housing or disability benefits. And we're told that the Chancellor has the flexibility, the headroom to look at tax cuts for some of the wealthiest through inheritance tax. And also, to be fair, it's suggested today on the front page of the Times he may be weighing up income tax or national insurance cuts as well. But it does seem to me that he's looking at going after some of the poorest people in the land, the unemployed. 300,000 people unemployed for over a year. That's it's a significant, but I wouldn't suggest it was the largest group of people out there. Going after the poorest in the land to fund tax cuts for some wealthier people. Is that fair? Is that just? It's worth pointing out, doing research ahead of today's show, I was interested in what we think, what we perceive as benefit scamming and such like. And although the survey's now going on 10 years old, we found that Britons believed that almost a quarter, 24% of all benefits were claimed fraudulently. And that's actually 34 times more than the then official estimate of 0.7%. So I can remember quite clearly back in 2013 that we hated benefit scroungers then. It's just extraordinary that the perception that we have is of the problem is so much greater, 34 times greater perhaps, than actuality. Well, joining me to discuss first, Charlie Mullins, founder of Pimlico Plumbers, London's largest independent plumbing company. Good morning to you, Charlie.
Yeah, good morning, Matthew.
Good morning. So, here we are again, a Tory government going after some of the poorest in the land to fund tax cuts for some of the wealthiest.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're not necessarily worded the best way there. The idea is that he wants to get people that, offer benefits that have been on them long term. And by, I think, introducing the fact that he's not prepared to continue paying it after, I think it's 18 months or something he's suggesting, then, I feel I wouldn't necessarily say he's going after the poorest people. He's going after what he necessarily thinks are benefit cheats.
Yeah, I mean, were you aware did you think that as much as a quarter of all benefits were fraudulently claimed? And what percentage do you feel is unfairly claimed?
Well, I mean, if they say a quarter, I would have thought 50% of it.
It's less than 1%, so it's 0.7%. But we read so much in the papers, you could be forgiven, I think, for getting the wrong end of the stick. It's 0.7%. So benefit fraud, you were looking at here, he's talking about he could free up £2.5 billion by going after the long-term unemployed. Liz Truss, in 3 months, cost the country £30 billion and no one's going after her for a penny. How is that just? In fact, I can go further. Today's Sunday Mirror, front page news, in 4 years, the Tory government has lost £100 billion through waste. £100 billion through waste in 4 years, and we're looking at going after people who are claiming their benefits. Perhaps they may have mental health problems, they could have physical health problems, they could all have all manner of reasons for not going to work. Are we going after the right people?
Yeah, well, I think if you word it like that, but it's not necessarily going after the people that do have mental health problems or people that generally can't work. I mean, he's clearly stating that he's going after the people that are on there long term, and he feels, shouldn't be on there. So,
but surely the first and foremost means of any Chancellor should be to save taxpayers' money, to get good value for taxpayers' money. And I'm looking at £100 billion of waste by government, and they're doing nothing to go after themselves, to punish themselves, to hold themselves to account. OK, we have elections every few years, but we haven't had an election for the last 2 prime ministers, it's worth mentioning. So £100 billion of Tory waste the government's doing nothing about, but they're going after people living on benefits. I mean, do you think people choose to go on benefits, Charlie, that they enjoy it?
Well, no, I'm not going to say that at all. There's certain people have to be on it, unfortunately,
right,
and they deserve the money they get because they can't go to work or they have a disability or mental health problem. But I feel the figures are a lot higher of the ones that are claiming on it. They shouldn't be, because there's a hell of a lot of people that are unemployed out there and won't take a job and been coasting along.
Maybe, Charlie, it's because jobs aren't perhaps as appealing as they were. I note that the Liz Trust that cost the country £30 billion, last week suggested we should cut the minimum wage. You yourself were dragged through the highest court in the land. You lost in the Supreme Court over gig economy workers. One of the concerns about gig economy workers is people had no rights, that it was too vulnerable. So we've ended up in a situation where working isn't perhaps as appealing as it used to be, Charlie.
Well, you are right there, but I mean, without you knowing the full facts of the case, I mean... Well,
I know what the Supreme Court ruled, and you lost in every court of the land on the way, so I mean...
yeah, but what did we lose? We lost the fact that he wasn't self-employed, he was on PAYE. We didn't lose anything. They'd come up with a judgment that said that he was PAYE, which was clearly wrong at the time. I mean, you don't know the facts, and it was clearly wrong. I mean, it made it very difficult for self-employed people to work. And this guy just see a loophole in the system there. So, we didn't lose anything at all. It didn't cost us any money.
Okay. Well, I'm glad it didn't cost you. I mean, the way it's reported is you lost it in every court of the land, Charlie. But yeah, you stay there if you may. I just want to bring Deven Ghelani now, Director of Policy and Practice, who was one of the architects of the Universal Credit System. So good morning to you, Deven.
Good morning.
I'll start off, first of all, the perception of fraudulent benefit claimed. And the closest figures I've got are 10 years old, but we perceive that 24% of all benefits are claimed fraudulently, 34 times greater than the official estimate of 0.7%.
I mean, I think the perception here is definitely the problem. I think politicians are in a place where they have to, because of that rhetoric that was put in place in 2013, they have to kind of almost carry a stick with any kind of support that might actually work to help people back into work. They have to carry a stick with it, almost to play to the gallery. If you look at the government's announcements last week, there's actually some pretty sensible support in there. So actual mental health support, actual investment in something called universal support, which
talking
is alongside
therapies,
universal credit, things that might actually help people. So, and then I think the question I've got is, after 18 months, given there's about 6,000 claimants who don't have disabilities or children still on benefits after 18 months who might actually be impacted by these types of sanctions. How many of those are actually going to re-engage with the system as a result? I'm not sure they've understood why people still aren't engaging with the system at that point. It could be.
Why do you think Sorry, Deven, I think this is a really interesting point. Why do you think, can you explain to the listeners why some people may not engage with the system after so long?
Yeah, so we work with local authorities across the UK, and we talk to people on the front line, and they tell us, I guess, two things. One, that they've never seen it so bad in terms of the challenges and problems that people are facing, but they've also never really seen it so bad in terms of the problems they're having to deal with, homelessness, addiction, but they've also never really seen it so bad in terms of they're quite some of the people that are in this position are quite far from work. Whether or not they've been assessed as such is a different point, but really what they need is some real kind of one-to-one support to help them get back on track. And if you just take away the prescriptions, which might affect things like mental health medication,
well said.
Right?
Yeah.
You're taking them further away from work. There's some real sensible concerns about this type of policy and whether it's counterproductive. But again, like I say, I think it's the government almost having to carry a stick alongside some very sensible support. But there's two other stories trailed that I'd love to get Charlie's take on, as well as yours. One is kind of a real terms cut to benefits by uprating with levels, by basically uprating by 4.3% instead of 6.7%, because that's the October rate instead of the September rate. So choosing the lower rate to uprate by, which would be cost about £3 billion. While also increasing local housing allowance for claimants who, that's also very much needed. But if you're paying for increases in housing support, which is money that goes directly to landlords and claimants are blamed for it, why does the benefit system cost so much? A lot of that is housing. But, if in this case the announcement was being paid for by cuts to overall benefit levels for everyone on the lowest incomes, does that make any sense? I mean, it really depends on how you pay for it. And if you're already also paying for inheritance tax cuts and other things, other income tax cuts, with that money, it seems, very much a budget for the rich.
Just before I get Charlie's reaction, I mean, as I was coming into work today, I thought, here we are, going after some of the poorest people in the land. And at the same time, I think Liz Truss, £30 billion her budget cost us, and you never hear another word about it. And then today's Sunday Mirror tells us that in 4 years, the Tories have, £100 billion of waste, of loss, including on things like helicopter flights and such like. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm going to go to the listeners in just a little bit. And I'm asking a question. I think the answer is just blatantly obvious, isn't it? I mean, we've got a government going after the poorest in the land while it seems squandering fortunes of taxpayers' money. I mean, I don't expect the government to punish itself, but should the government be punishing itself, Deven?
I mean, I'm not very cynical. I'm pretty optimistic about, I think when government tends to spend money in a terrible way, it's more cock-up than conspiracy. And I think there's been an awful lot of that during COVID. But you still need to fix that. And I don't think the government's been very competent in looking at how it deals with that. And the public will take a view of that over the next 12 months when there's an election.
Failed Festival of Brexit, £120 million. Union Jacks for Whitehall departments, £163,000. Unused or unusable PPE plus storage, £14.9 billion. I mean, it's just extraordinary. But here we are, focused on going after people that have been long time unemployed. Deven, thank you to you. Charlie, quick response to what Deven mentioned there.
Yeah, well, he's obviously right on the facts of the way it's been worded, as if it's not a fair system. But, Hunt's clearly said that he's going after people that fail to take steps to find employment that are capable. And, we've got to start somewhere. Of course the government have wasted lots of money. We could go on about migrants, immigrants and non-stop on this.
Or we could go on about Boris Johnson receiving an MP's salary while not turning up to Parliament. I mean,
Yeah, look, I'm not in agreement with it. I'm just purely saying that I think it's a step in the right direction to get people into the workplace.
Yeah, but shouldn't we start by leading by example that someone who is receiving £85,000 or whatever as a backbench MP from taxpayers should at least turn up to the job? I mean, it's all very well criticising everybody else being on unemployment benefit, but you're actually taking loads more money for a job you don't even turn up to. Charlie Mullins, lovely talking to you.